Folks, this is Gary Wise for Poker Static. We don't really have a name for this show, but I do interviews with people you want to see interviewed, and that's really what I'm doing here today. Now, I'm going to show you quickly that I am in a suite. Pretty swanky, huh? I can't afford this, and that means that I'm in the suite of somebody who can, namely Daniel Negreanu. Daniel?
What's up? How you doing, Mr. Wise?
That's Daniel Negreanu, folks. It's a big deal. We went to high school together, and we go way back, but, I have to admit that your station in life has quite exceeded our grassroots.
Probably our expectations, too.
Certainly mine. No offense.
Yeah.
Daniel is here today being interviewed because he's one of the most interesting personalities in poker. He's about to be doing a landmark broadcast for ESPN2, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But for the moment, I want to talk to him about Prahlad Freeman. I want to talk to him about the all-time cashes list. I want to talk to him about PokerStars' changing brand. And first, I want to talk to him about the $100,000 event here at PokerStars Caribbean Adventure. I've already told Daniel that he'll get plenty of opportunities to talk about that brand, that path right there. We won't have to worry about too much shillism, but we'll get to all of it, and maybe we'll even get his thoughts on Phil Hellmuth and the possibility of a place on Team PokerStars for Phil. All right, so let's start with the 100K because it's very recent news. It's a big deal. You came second. I think before the tournament started, obviously, if someone had told you you're going to win 1 point, sorry, not 1 point, but if you were going to come second place in this tournament, you would have been very happy with that result. Do you find yourself now looking at it as you lost a two-person tournament?
No, normally I would, and I think in a lot of situations I would, but considering the strength of the field, second place in that event, second to Eugene Kachalov, who's widely regarded as one of the best unknown tournament players in the world, less unknown after this.
Right.
He's amazing, he's a great player, and I felt the key thing I came away with was I was very impressed with myself and how well I played throughout the event, and I felt like I was a little bit unlucky in the heads-up, obviously the last hand, 5s against 4s, but I was happy with my play, and I actually left that feeling like, happy for Eugene, happy for me. And it didn't hurt. I think that the second place finish, put me number 1 on the all-time money list, which kind of softened the blow a little bit.
Right. I know that you're friendly with Eugene. Was there a conversation between the two of you and Nick Schulman before the final table about doing shots at the final three? Happened to be the three of you?
The plan was, we were joking around, because I really like those guys a lot. I think they're really, not only really good players, but really good people. And before we started, we joked and said, because I had a feeling it would be him, me, Eugene. I thought it would be the three of us and Bryn Kenny, and it did come out that way. And we said if it came down to us three, that we just start doing shots.
Bryn not a drinker?
Well, no, we weren't including Bryn. He's not he wasn't in our little mini circle. He wasn't around. So that was the plan. Nick ended up finishing 4th, which got me off the shots because I'm a lightweight when it comes to that stuff. Thankfully, we didn't have to do that. But it was a really, amazing final table, and it went almost to script. Of course, one twist at the end would have been better with me winning.
So when you look at a tournament like this one, where you had a massive stack on day 2, you had that big hand against Eugene, and at that point you have to be the favorite. Does that color the way you look back at all? It sounds like it doesn't. It sounds like you're totally cool with the way that all worked out.
No, see, that's the thing. A lot of people, media people like yourself, when they see, chip leader, 30, 40 people left, they think, there's a long way to go. Because if you maintain your chip stack, other people will bust others, and they will double up, and you're not going to go, very rarely are you going to go chip leader wire to wire. You're going to have your ebb and flow, and you're going to win and lose some pots. So I look at it as putting myself in a good position, but just because I was chip leader or pretty close to it, halfway through, I was like, I've been here before,
Do you think, though, it's the media getting ahead of itself, or is it the media hoping? We saw with Chris Moneymaker in the main event.
Yeah.
The moment he got himself a stack, everyone was like, Moneymaker could make the final table, and there could be another poker boom. That was getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
I say ourselves loosely, but...
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say that necessarily it's them getting ahead of themselves as much as it's not fully being there and understanding that, it means it's a good possibility, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. Just because he didn't make the final table or because the chip leader doesn't win doesn't mean they screwed up. It's just the way the blinds go up, so you're not going to necessarily continue to run good just because you run good up until that point.
Okay. The second place finish puts you second in the all-time money list. Puts you. The second place puts you first in the all-time money list. Sorry, I'm getting my numbers confused. I did my research. I promise you.
No, I hear you.
First place. How big a deal is that, or is it really Is it the kind of thing that you're waiting to see how Aussie Millions plays out for Phil before you do any celebrating, or like?
Well, I don't think about it as tournament. I'm happy to be there. One of my goals at the outset of the year was to get that title back as being number one all time from Ivy. But I feel like for the next 15, 20 years, Phil and I are going to go back and forth with that, and it should be a fun battle. What pleases me the most is that Phil cares. And when Phil cares and I care, I think it makes for a good story within poker. If one of us cared, one of us didn't, it's sort of like, well, no big deal. But since he kind of wants it, he's playing for titles, and as much as Phil's shies away from the media, and we don't hear about Phil Ivey caring as much about, he cares. He makes these side bets and stuff so that he can motivate himself financially as well. But he wants all the records also, so it's nice to hold one from him for a little while at least.
How long do you think you'll hold it? Is it yours for a while?
I'm hoping I can hold it all year. I mean, I feel really good about the way I'm playing right now. I ended the year on a high note, really, with a 4th and a 9th in the last couple tournaments. Started to really kick it in gear. World Series Europe, made the quarterfinals, bubbled there, made EPT London cash. So it really started to roll, and I got a nice $1 million score right off the bat this year, and I feel really motivated to play a lot of tournaments. And I feel once you start running deep, you feel like you're supposed to.
So life is going good. You're feeling good, and it's making you play good.
Yeah, I mean all around. I think 2010 in a lot of ways was a transition year on many levels. Aside from my mother passing and me getting used to that, changing my game as well. Adding a lot more layers and playing a lot more online to practice and learn from a lot of these guys that were clearly, more advanced in terms of their fundamental understanding. So learning a lot and learning how to adjust and use that in my tournament game. There were some growing pains with it. I'm making some mistakes. You shouldn't be 4-betting here. You shouldn't be, it's a brand new toy.
Right.
You don't know how to use it very well until you play with it a while. But all the new tools I have in my arsenal right now, very confident about knowing when to implement them. So I feel really good about it.
This is kind of a tough question to answer, but how far through your journey from live player to live/online player are you? Like, have you figured out how to use all those toys, or and how far along in that development are you?
Well, the next frontier for me, really. I feel like I've done enough. I realize it's only a 12,000 hand sample of 1 in 200, no limit, and you can run good. But I've done pretty well and won like 10 straight sessions, won $500,000, on an uptick, up about 250 in that game after being stuck. The next frontier for me is realizing that, you're not an online guy unless you can multi-table. And
right.
That's sort of been my old man stigma that, I can't 2-table even. So one of the things I've been trying to do is 4-table. Playing 5-10 against whoever wants to play, really. If you want to play me 5-10, find me on PokerStars and I'll give you action. The goal is to see if I can play 2,500 hands. That's a key number for a couple of reasons. I played 1,038 hands. My brain was mush, really, and I want to try to play Isildur. I'm nowhere near ready, so I'd like to train for it and I'd like to practice, get to the point where I feel comfortable 4-tabling, because right now it's just difficult. I've done it a couple times and I find it very tough. That's not the way I thought about poker growing up. So it's a big adjustment for me, but I'm gonna go full out and see if I can get there.
I think anybody who gets as much attention as you do is bound to get a lot of criticism, regardless of whether it's founded. Do you find that the attitude that the online community takes towards you is starting to shift now that you've started to prove yourself at the online tables?
No, not really. I think it depends. It depends. Like,
you're still the gay racist, right?
Yeah. The people that know me, or the people that come on these tournaments and stuff and play, generally speaking, we have mutual respect. I think when you're dealing with forums, you don't really know who you're dealing with. You're dealing with a lot of people who don't know me very well, who haven't played with me, who just think I'm a sucker because they've seen me pay off every hand on TV or whatever the case may be. And that's fine. And I don't think that'll change really, no matter what I do. I think I could win 5 tournaments in a row and crush everyone, and it would still be like, wow, variance, short term. I find it interesting often that they'll use, my TV hands, which is a small percentage, and say that, oh, that obviously proves I'm bad. But then when I win over an extended period online, well, that's obviously variance. So you can't have it both ways.
Right.
I know I make a lot of mistakes. The difference is there's a perception that I couldn't possibly know how to fix them or cure them or improve. But if you watched and didn't know who Durr was or Phil Ivey, and you watched some of the hands they played, and you didn't know it was them, and you go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. But once you know it's them, it's like, oh wow, sick read, or awesome, weird move. But because they have that
right.
respect that I obviously don't, which is another story in itself.
He didn't actually deny it, so I'm going to say that Daniel's not actually a gay racist. All right, so back to the 100K. And to the all-time money list. I first of all want to ask you, how valid a stat do you think that the money count is? Because it's not like baseball where each home run has a tangible value, and it's not like in baseball, home runs doesn't account for strikeouts. I think that we don't accumulate the buy-ins, we don't accumulate the losses. Is this really just a fun stat that we can follow, or is there more relevance to it?
It is mostly just a fun stat. It could be made more relevant if we did it properly, or if somebody was going to tabulate the results properly. I mean, I look at the various sites that track it, and one of the things they need, why I think to make it pure, and I you've disagreed with this because I listen to your shows sometimes, and I believe
Which one? God.
That was the poker.
I'm doing a lot of them these days.
So the one thing I believe wholeheartedly is that no invitationals whatsoever should count, and nothing where people are restricted from playing should count. So even the NBC heads up should absolutely not count.
Yeah, we were just talking about this on Poker Week this week, and I said NBC should not count. I was the one who said that
right.
It's the only way to have a proper
like,
count.
for example, they play these 100,000 buy-ins on Poker After Dark, six-handed. I'm not allowed to play because they won't let me. I would play, but they won't allow me. So, yeah, exactly. PokerStar, we allow people to play on all of our shows, but they have a different policy. So, all those things. And for example, like what if me, you, and 4 of us got together and so we're going to do a $1 million tournament? It's exclusive.
You're backing me, right?
Huh?
You're backing me?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, we're not playing for real. We'll do it Russ Hamilton style.
Oh.
So anyway, my thinking is anytime you have an open event, the buy-in shouldn't matter. Obviously, 38 players is a small field.
Right.
Phil Ivey had a 600,000 cash last year in a field of like 19 or 20. Those should count because everyone's open to play. But anything that's invitational, I think, should absolutely not count. And if we did that, my number would go down. I think Ivey's would go down even more. So I'd have a bigger lead. So that's why I want to do it. I'm kidding.
We were talking about this in the media room the other day, and one of the media guys said that the NBC should count because you can satellite your way in. How are you defining open? Is it anybody can pay straight into the main event?
Open in terms of like, okay, a cap field is one thing, like, okay, there, some of these fields have caps on them, so you can get in if you want to, but no one should be, like, say for example, if let's use a name like JC Tran. Okay. Why shouldn't he be allowed to? Why shouldn't he have the same opportunity to be on the all-time money leader list and move up as someone who maybe like a Phil Locke, who maybe is considered more colorful and better for television or something along those lines? That should not be a prerequisite for the all-time money list. If you really want to make it pure, you take away the invitationals, the site-run events, and things like that as well.
Now, I heard a couple of people say that the $100,000 tournament is not really a fair one for the tabulation because of the fact it really is exclusive territory. Like it's rarefied air that you're in, being able to put up $100,000 to play.
And I would disagree completely because I know for a fact that some of these people were playing for as little as 8 to 10% of their own money because they have friends who had a lot of faith in them, and if you are a good player and there's a lot of people who think you can get in, you pool your money, and a lot of people for 100,000 buy-in will have the opportunity to do that. Now where do you draw the line? Okay, 100,000 is too big, right? What about 25? Should they not count? What about tens? There's a lot of guys who can't play in $10,000 events. Should they not count? Where do you draw that line? Is it 75,000, 80? There really isn't a line. I mean, I guess people could say a $1 million buy-in event shouldn't count, but if it's open, why not? It's real. It's real. It's real people putting up real money to win those prizes, and it's an open tournament. That's all you can really do to protect that list.
I know that back when Mansion Poker was talking about doing like mega buy-in events and so on, I had concerns about the fact that poker television really is adrenaline-based programming. And if you have a $100,000 buy-in, and people know that people are buying into tournaments for $100,000, really, what is $10,000 by comparison? Do you have any concerns about the way the viewing public might view a 10K event as a result of there being 100K events?
Not really, because I think a 100 is an absolutely special event. I mean, we're not really going to see, this is the biggest buy-in prize pool. It's massive, and it's not going to be something you're going to see every month. And what it does is it brings together a collection of the best players. And for the poker diehards, I think they enjoy seeing tables stacked with all their like online heroes and some of the old school guys, exclusively. Where you have the $10,000 buy-in events, you're rarely going to see that. Right. Where you have like 8 guys that every single one of them, and you're a fan of them all, or hate some of them, whatever.
All right, I want to move on to some of the other side events for a moment. I know that you have, you participate a lot in the forming of the World Series of Poker schedule. Did you have anything to do with the building of the PCA schedule this year?
A little bit, I'm obviously on the email chain, and I'm asked my opinion on number of events and things like that. And I think we've done a great job of positioning it as outside of the World Series of Poker, a real big-time poker festival with a lot of variety for people of various bankrolls, as small as 300 to as big as 100,000.
What does it say about PokerStars, do you think, that, and this is going to transition into another topic entirely, the fact is, they had Bing Laha and they had Fipple Draw and like games that nobody's ever heard of before. And it shows. Does this show a transitional attitude from PokerStars on poker as a game that's supposed to be fun and different and offer more variety than what we've seen in the Hold'em era?
Well, I think what it does first and foremost is it shows that they listen, and they're listening to feedback from players, because obviously there was a demand for it. On the forum, some of those guys were like, "Hey, we want to play this," and they're like, "If you guys want to do it, we'll run it for you." Some places wouldn't necessarily do that, like, "Well, it's going to be too small." And not only did we run some, but we ran some with some guarantees, which that seems like to me unprecedented, because you don't know what's going to happen when you run a Fip Laha or Bing Laha. I don't even know what the games are. But the fact they do that, again, it does show that they listen, I think, and also want to give these guys a chance to just have some fun and not always be playing No Limit Hold'em. Just do something stupid and silly.
You've got to be pretty excited about the fact that the top pros are now all starting to play multi-table games or multi-game tables again. There was a time, from 2004 2008, where Hold'em was the only game you could get spread most of the time. And now you see, the online giants starting to play 8-game, and you hear about the Bing Lahas of the world being played, and you got to be licking your chops a little bit because you have experience in these games that most of these guys don't, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I was actually slightly concerned with the poker boom that because No Limit Hold'em was so prevalent, a lot of schedules were looking like No Limit Hold'em every day, and it was the Omahas were gone and things like that. But it feels like I'm happy to see this that. People got, a lot of the regulars are like, we've played Hold'em, let's try this other game out, and it's fun again, because these guys, the grinders, they play No Limit every day, and after a few years, they've got that pretty much figured out for the most part, but starting to learn stud and Stud-Ater better is becoming more interesting, and if you look at the highest levels, if you look online, you're going to rarely see straight No Limit Hold'em games played. They just don't have the longevity. But a mixed game, everyone has slightly weaker games than others, so it's much more difficult for people to know, like, am I really a favorite in this game? So you see people willing to say, oh, that guy's terrible at stud. I'll give up that I'm not as good in Omaha and play with him anyway.
So do you think that we already just talked about how that reflects on PokerStars. One other thing I noticed this weekend is that there's been a real gearing by PokerStars of the company's brand towards youth. Down in the lobby, there are these monstrous pictures, awesome pictures, by a European photographer named Rankin, who is apparently the Annie Leibovitz of Europe. Very big deal. All these pictures are prominently displayed, but it's not all the PokerStars pros. It's about 12 or 15 of you, and you're the old guy, Daniel. There's no Greg Raymer, there's no Chris Moneymaker, there's no Joe Hasham or Barry Greenstein. You're the eldest. Does this suggest that PokerStars is now gearing itself towards a younger market?
Well, I'll start out by saying Rankin is huge. He's amazing. He's photographed the Queen, Brad Pitt, you name it. And the shoot was absolutely a lot of fun. And I think it's been the case for a while. I think the Rankin shoot maybe sort of makes it more obvious that poker is a young man's game. I mean, if you look at the final tables these days, they're a lot younger. So there's a lot more young people playing. And I think a lot of times their heroes that they identify with are going to be younger, which makes sense. So.
Sure.
It seems to just be logical, makes sense. I think that...
well, I ask because I think that in the past, PokerStars has kind of been the family website. You have these well-rounded individuals who play poker and do well at it. That was kind of the message. It was the socially acceptable pastime. And now, instead of socially acceptable, the message seems to be cool.
I think the idea is, when we touch on a lot of different things, I think with home games, that revives the message of poker's fun. Just get together with your buddies.
Right.
You can get a game together. You can join your poker club. Really laid back, low stakes kind of stuff. Very safe for those that. But it's a fact. Like one of the thoughts behind my thinking behind home games is that for a lot of those people, the barrier is I don't know, I don't trust it.
Right.
I don't want to play online. I don't know these people. But if they just play with their friends, that gives it the sort of fun, safe feel, which we also. But I think when it comes to marketing commercials and ads and things like that, getting sexier, getting younger, that's just the way the world works for the most part.
I'm screwed. All right, let's move on to another website. I want to talk to you about a number of goings-on that have occurred recently with Ultimate Bet. And this is where you get to lick your chops a little bit, and so does the viewer. A few things have gone on. We'll start with talking about Prahlad. A guy who I've always liked, and the sense I get is that you've always liked him also. He recently signed a deal with UB, despite the fact that Spirit Rock was pretty much the biggest victim of the UB scandal a few years ago. Now, I think you and I see eye on the scandal. I was I was behind the 60 Minutes thing a little bit, and you've been very public with your attitude. You obviously haven't forgiven UB. Can you explain for those who don't agree with you why it is you haven't?
Well, first of all, there's nothing to forgive. They've not done anything to have me forgive them. There's still people waiting for hand histories. There's still this missing 10%. There's still no proof or no real belief in my mind that any of the old owners that were profiting are gone. I mean, there's a lot of smoke, and where there's smoke, there's fire. The company is built on shady principles. I believe wholeheartedly, and I think it would be difficult for anyone there to argue that their existence in our community benefits us as a whole. I think them being gone would be better for poker if they were completely obliterated, which I felt like should have happened after the scandal anyway, after the repeated security breaches and things like that.
Is that a realistic expectation?
No, not really.
In poker, every man's an island, right?
Sure. Absolutely. I'm saying for poker's best interest, I think that they should not exist. And I think in the future, if poker is regulated, they will, be set aside, because I just don't see how they can get regulation. But any time regulation comes up, they're just a wart on our industry, because this scandal happened. There's no penalties. These people are still running around. Russ Hamilton's golfing at TPC Summerlin. Ha ha ha. The players have not been compensated. You can say you compensated the players, but what about the confidence? What about the issue of, okay, so Prahlad, let's say he was cheated out of $1 million. How about all the money?
I think that's a conservative estimate.
Okay, let's say it was $1 million. How about all of the other revenue that, aside from the fact that he wasted all this time playing in a cheated game, what it did to his game? If you play against 3 people that beat you all the time, you're going to make changes to your game. So there's other aspects to the fact that you need to be reimbursed. My biggest issue with Prahlad signing isn't the fact that I don't like the guy, because I do very much. It's just that for so many years he set aside his principles. He was so morally against wearing a Nike logo or wearing any corporate logo, and then to set that aside to sign with the very people that took advantage of him, I was really disappointed in him that he did that.
Well, isn't the logo thing just a question of growing up and realizing that security for your loved ones is a nice thing to be able to achieve?
I don't begrudge anyone for saying, hey, I need to support my family, I need to make a living. What irks me is that Prahlad for so long was speaking out against the fact that I represent poker stars and others and things like that, and I was like, he sort of took a higher moral ground on it, saying, he would never do that. He said he would never sign with any site. And then to do it clearly for money, because there's no other reason why he signed with them. It's just impossible to think that, given the choice, he would choose them. And I don't think he's done his due diligence in terms of back-checking to see if players have been taken care of. Maybe he's been taken care of because they took care of him because they obviously want him to represent the company. But what about all those people on the forums who are still saying, yo, I haven't got my hand histories yet? This is important. Just because he doesn't think it's important to him, because he feels like, hey, it's a good enough amount of money, I'm not going to go check into it, see if it's... What about those other people? They deserve answers, and they deserve, hand histories at the very least.
Okay, there are some people who I really like who work for UB. Eric Baldwin's a really good guy. A lot of these guys are respectable individuals. Do you feel like those people should be sacrificing themselves for the greater good in terms of providing themselves with this? Daniel, let's be honest. We're not all coming second in $100,000 buy-in events.
I know exactly where you're going with that, and I spoke to Maria Ho when she signed and let her know that I don't begrudge her for doing that. I think I do understand that the tournament circuit's really expensive to play. It costs a lot of money, and it's hard to pass up a lot of money if you don't have a lot of options.
Right.
So for those people that don't, Eric Baldwin wasn't exactly getting big offers from Stars or Tilt or anything like that. So he did what he had to do. I don't begrudge that. I think when you do have a choice and you can't afford it and you're a high limit player, like Prahlad was, feels like to me, and also because he's always had this position of anti-corporation, that for him to sign with them just sends the wrong message to the poker world. Like, you're really okay with this? These guys just beat you down. They're still there, profiting, and you're going to represent them now? It just feels, I'm embarrassed for him a little bit. Like, I'm disappointed in him that he did that. But again, he's his own man. He makes his own decisions. And if his family and friends, if he talked to them and was okay with completely changing his mind and his position on it, I just wish I heard a more valid reason as to why. Because I haven't really heard anything that says, oh, okay, yeah, you want to, for this reason.
What do you think of his assertion that charity plays into it, that he has the ability to really be proactive with his charitable efforts and be at the forefront of that, whereas, with the poker stars who are full tilt, where he'd be just a very small cog in the machine, he wouldn't be able to be quite so controlling of his creative energies.
Frankly, the truth is, the old Prahlad I would have believed. No, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it because I don't believe that that is something that, I mean, PokerStars does tons of charity work, as does Full Tilt. I don't believe that that would be a deal breaker with any other site, that he would want to do more charitable efforts. I think the sites welcome that. So I think it's just a way of saying, hey, I'm only going to UB for charity because it sort of softens the blow and the impact of like the fact that he's, in a sense, doing what he was calling other people out for doing, which was what, he used the word sell out. I don't consider it selling out to sign with a site that you think is, trustworthy and reputable. I think to say you'd never do it and then to sign with the most evil sounds a lot more like selling out than,
So it sounds like it's his past and the fact that he said those things he did that makes you so frustrated over this whole thing. Like if it was a Maria Ho kind of situation, you'd be a lot more, just a lot more understanding.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that I've gotten speeches from Prahlad about representing a site and how I could do that, being liberal and all, and then to tell me all that stuff, and then, I guess, I don't know if it's a bad run and he needed the money or whatever the case may be, but it just seemed really out of character for him to do that. And I was, like I said, disappointed. This isn't going to, keep me from talking to him or being friends with him, and he's as outspoken as I ever was. So I think he can respect the fact that if I were to do something like that, he would speak out against it. So I would do the same. I've defended him in the past. Sure. The whole clock issue, I completely defended his integrity and things like that. But in this case, I just, very disappointed because I feel like going back 10 years, I've had vehement, I was vehemently against UB from the very get-go. Once I found out, people always, they go to this picture where I wore a UB logo. Make it clear, I never once got a penny from UB. At the very outset, I was considering investing in UB, and they considered doing a deal, so I wore the stuff for free. Once I heard, despite being told Russ Hamilton would not be involved, once I heard he was, I said, I'm out. Once I heard that they were going to hold a fake WPT event, I said, no, I'm out, and I walked immediately. So, and I didn't have any money at the time. Right. I was basically grinding my butt off. I didn't have money, but I still morally would not sign a deal with people that I didn't trust, and I did not trust him from the outset. I was told, oh, don't worry, Russ won't be involved. Then I heard Russ is going to police the high limit games. It's like, are you kidding me? At the very least, I thought what he would do is take the hand histories and watch how people play and then play against them. I didn't know he was actually going to do that while he was playing them, but it doesn't, I don't put it past him. The infrastructure of that whole company, since Russ was so heavily involved, is broken, and it's not fixed. I mean, I've done enough research to know that.
Okay. Let's talk about another UB-affiliated persona, Annie Duke. She left at the same time as Phil Hellmuth. She did it was Matt and Matt on PokerNews.com. She did an interview where she said that she chose to leave. It had nothing to do with Phil's departure, and that she is not seeking sponsorship at this time. First of all, what do you think about Annie? She also said that the reason she stayed with UB as long as she did is she felt that they were making steps in the right direction, and she felt that it would be kind of a nail in the coffin kind of thing if she had left them during that tumultuous period. Do you buy those comments, and what do you think about her assertion that she doesn't want to work for an online site right now?
Well, I think if you look at the facts, the stock options that they had in a company called Escapa went belly up, and the timing of them leaving doesn't seem to be a coincidence to me. Okay. It feels to me like money dried up. I don't speak to her, obviously, so I don't know for a fact, but it feels to me like money dried up. They weren't willing to pay. Maybe they weren't willing to re-sign her. The stock options were worth nothing. So there was really no reason to stay. Right. There was, the opportunity to make money was gone. And as for Hellmuth, if you look at it on the surface, it seems like, okay, for 2 months, he didn't wear a logo, didn't say anything, so it's obvious to anyone with a brain that he was negotiating contracts. And then, a couple months later, he decided to go public and say that he wasn't. Now, to assert, and I've heard them assert that, oh, it had nothing to do with the contract. Really? You want to take a lie detector test that it had nothing to do with the contract? You're telling me that if you guys would have paid Phil, that he wouldn't have signed with UB? I think he would have. I think, and I haven't spoken to him about this, but I think the facts show for 2 months he didn't wear a logo. It wasn't this mutual thing where they both wanted to go. If that were the case, it would have happened 2 months ago. It wouldn't have happened at after a long delay. There's no explanation for that outside the fact that we're negotiating a contract, and that was the most likely reason why he's no longer with them. And I'm assuming that's the same case for Annie Duke. I would assume that it revolves around the fact that they weren't being paid. So
what are your predictions for where the two of them end up? Are they going to end up working with online sites? So which ones?
I think Phil Hellmuth is probably going to talk to a few. I think the fact that the regulation didn't hit hurts him a little bit because there was potentially an opportunity for him to go to something like WSOP.com.
Right.
But I think Phil will bide his time and try to look for the best fit, and I think it could be anything from PokerStars to Full Tilt to Party Poker to,
PhilHellmuth.com?
Probably not. Probably not that. But,
How about Facebook? You think Facebook could use a Phil Hellmuth?
Well, that's all going to depend on the law, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got hopes that something like that would come about, but in the meantime, we got to be at least 6 months to a year away. What does he do then? So does he sign a deal? And I think he's, exploring his options, and I think that he'd be welcome at a lot of different sites because he brings in a lot in terms of he's great to watch on TV. I mean, he's fun.
He's the action on television.
Yeah, I mean, he's fun. He plays in those cash games. He's good to have there, and he's great. So he's an asset from that perspective. And
do you think Phil would sign with the PokerStars or Full Tilt where he would suddenly not be allowed to play on the other one's television shows?
Yeah, I think he would. For the right price, sure. I think so. But actually, just to make it clear, with PokerStars and their policy, I'm allowed to play on whatever I want to play. He's focusing on some people think they get muddled with the idea of what really happened with high stakes poker and things like that. PokerStars invites everyone to play, and it's other sites' policies that don't allow them, like Full Tilt's policies not to support our shows, and they have every right to do that. But the public should know the difference. The truth is, I would have every opportunity to play on Poker After Dark from PokerStars' perspective. I'm not allowed based on theirs. Like, we asked if we could play, they said no, we don't want you. That's fine. They have every right to say that. We have a right, but the public should know the difference. The reason why you're not seeing the melding between Stars and Tilt playing on the same tables and stuff is not a Stars policy.
Is that fallout from the Latin American Daniel Negreanu playing on Full Tilt Poker?
Well, there was an issue, clearly, that when I was playing on Poker After Dark, I was misused in a show that aired. They had international rights, and there was a show that aired in a Spanish-speaking country where it said something to the effect of, "Come play with Daniel Negreanu at, them." And obviously, PokerStars is not going to like that. So there was a period where they stopped allowing our players to play until we, did our due diligence and figure out what happened. It was explained to us there was a mistake. It took about 6 months or so, and then they said, "Okay, well, we've looked into it. We're okay with it now." It upset them for some reason, and I guess they've changed their policy 180. And I know it's got to upset guys like Tom Dwan, who he wants his freedom and he wants to be able to play on whatever he wants, and he's a peacekeeper. He wants peace, kumbaya with all. And I think, as it turns out, their decision probably doesn't hurt poker all that much because it gives an opportunity for a lot of new young players that, like a Scott Seaver, who's a Bill Reynolds, who've made good impressions on the big game.
All right. One question about the Phil thing. Let's say, hypothetically, Phil Hellmuth were to come to PokerStars. Now, obviously, Phil Hellmuth is a very big deal. He's one of the top 5 player brands in the industry. So is Daniel Negreanu. And Daniel Negreanu's player brand is very closely affiliated with PokerStars.net. What would your attitude be towards Phil's place in the PokerStars universe? I
get along really well with Phil. When I'm at the table with Phil, I needle him because it's easy and it's fun, and he's an idiot on TV. But aside from that, we get along just fine. And if the company felt like he was, he fit and it made sense for him to be on PokerStars, I'd welcome him with both arms. Our team is really big. It's pretty diverse. We have a really, solid team of young tournament pros and things like that. And I think adding Phil Hellmuth, if it means having him on the big game, then I'd be definitely happy about it because he's fun to play with. But I don't feel like there would be any issue.
Is it because he's fun to play with or he's easy to play with?
Combination. But I think that, what was I going with that? I mean, it really comes down to what Phil decides makes the most sense for him. But I don't feel like there would be any butting of heads with us being, on the same side. I think we would work together. And I think we do a lot of fun stuff together. Some heads-up match, whatever the case may be. I think we do some promotional things together, and I have no problems doing that.
Is there any player whose at-table persona differs further from their personality than Phil Hellmuth?
Well, he's still a weirdo. I mean, even away from the table. He's a nice guy, but he's a nice weirdo. Like, he still says weird things, like... This is a funny story with Eric Lindgren.
Yeah. Eric, did you ever think you'd be hanging out with Phil Hellmuth?
He's like, look at you. You're in a limo. You're on your way to New York drinking champagne with Phil Hellmuth. I'm like, really, Phil? So, I mean, I still think that Phil lives in fantasy land. One of the things I like to try to talk to him about aside is that his, like I said, 2010 was a year of a lot of transition and realization that, poker's gotten a lot tougher, and it requires a new skill set, an updated one. And Phil's is way out of date, way out of whack, and I try to talk to him about it, but he's very resistant to believing in the fact that these young kids might know something that he doesn't. And that's sad, because if he doesn't, come to terms with it, it's going to be very difficult for him to ever up in the winner's circle again.
Right. So it sounds like a Daniel and Phil team up could be in the works.
That's stuff that I don't even speculate on, because I'm sure I know he's talking to a lot of people, and I don't even know personally how much interest there is. I think one of the things whenever you deal with the Phil Hellmuth is like he's going to look at his self-worth, and then he has to match that with that of what a company deems his self-worth,
right.
And often there's going to be a big discrepancy in that number.
All right, we're actually almost done this thing. I've taken up a lot of your time. Before we go, I do want to talk to you, though, about a new innovation that PokerStars announced this week. I think that there was a gap that was closed a little bit between Stars and Full Tilt when they announced Rush Poker. Excuse me. Editors, you can take out the cough. It seems like PokerStars this week made their first really innovative step away from Full Tilt in a way that might help them widen that gap again, and that was with the home games. Is this just like another little frill, or do you think this is really going to be a big step towards the future of poker? We talked about how it's no longer Hold'em, it's now poker again, and is this really indicative of the fact that people are going to be able to start playing whichever games they want to play?
I think it's a very key step and very innovative in the sense that for so long, it's based on a lot of research. A lot of people that you talk to in Middle America who are like, oh, I wouldn't play online. I don't trust these people. I don't know what's going on. Well, now they have the opportunity to get their foot in the door and play against people that they do know. Aside from that, when you start your own club, there's a privacy aspect. So let's say you've got some big winners, you've got the Guy Libertés, and they want to play online. They don't want everyone knowing what they're doing because the poker trackers, the poker table ratings, they're in their private home game. No one will ever see that stuff. So it gives them the privacy aspect. Aside from that, a lot of people complain about the fact that you have Hold'em Manager and Poker Tracker. Well, you can play in your private clubs, and you can and you don't have that option. So there's a lot of pluses to it. The only negatives I hear from some people is, all the fish are going to be taken by. Absolutely short-sighted. Because what's going to happen is a lot of people that would not have made deposits normally, they're going to jump in, play in their clubs, and then they're, when there's nothing going on, they're going to check out the lobby, and they're going to jump in your game. So for the grinders, for the people that are new to poker, for the people that have questions about, playing against other people, can they see my hole cards, all that stuff, are they in Russell Hamilton mode, if you will, they have the safety of playing against their friends. So all in all, I think it's a really big push for 2011 to create more poker players and to hit a different demographic to make them feel safe about playing online poker.
When Jeffrey Hawes and I were at A.Y. Jackson Secondary School playing our penny games, we were playing with wild cards, we were playing Follow the Queen, Deuces, Jacks, Man with the Axe, Pair of Natural, Sevens Beats All. Are we ever going to see those kinds of games being offered in the home games?
I think what we see now with the home games client is a very basic view of what you're going to see. It's essentially like beta. But there's going to be innovations added monthly, and it's based on feedback. The club owners say, hey, we want this, and we'll listen. We're going to expand. There's going to be more options. There's going to be more customization. I've made a lot of suggestions in terms of tournaments and blind levels. Right now, you can do anything from 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10, 20 minutes. I'd like to see where you can actually create your own blind structure, because I'm a geek when it comes to that stuff. Right. Your own antes. But right now,
you're a geek about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of customization that you have the opportunity to do now, but it's only going to get better. It's only going to improve. And what I think is great about it is it makes those club owners and those people who play feel more part of the site, because they have a say. And like you mentioned earlier, with the Bing Laha and stuff, PokerStars has shown that when people ask for something, they'll listen and they'll give you what you want.
All right. We reached the end.
Cool.
I want you to promote everything you could possibly promote in the next minute. Just tell everybody everything that you want to sell and you want them to do.
I'm a PokerStars guy, obviously. The other thing that I have going on, which I'm excited about, some new changes that we're with Jason Somerville, who's doing a lot of new work with Poker VT. He's got a new course out there that's really cool, and we're going to start doing some more things. We're going to actually, probably use the PokerStars home games to create some weekly tournaments and things like that through the Poker VT. I'm going to start shooting, because there's more interest in mixed games, I'm going to start probably shooting a lot more 8-game stuff to give a lot of these guys some insight into how, I think. And so that, just really Poker VT, PokerStars, Simple as that.
Cool. Daniel, you're always wonderful with your time. I know that you have a party to go to in about 45 minutes.
So late.
You know, you've done only about 5 million interviews this week, and somewhere in there you're feeling a few hands of poker. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your candor, and safe travels.
Cheers.
Cheers.